Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and today's video is going to be a first impressions one of 4 fragrances that are new or relatively new to my collection. 2 of them come from the brand of Volare and are part of a line of fragrances that are cloning original scents from Louis Vuitton, and the other 2 come from the brand of Paris Corner and are part of the North Stag Impressions line, and those were the 2 ones that were missing from my collection. First, I'm going to talk about the 2 scents from the brand of Volare. They're called Moroccan Dream and Santorini Beaches. Now, the brand of Volare is a new sub-brand of Lattafa, a new clone sub-brand of Lattafa that basically does nothing else but doing clone fragrances. It's very similar to Mesa and Alhambra, but in my opinion I've already tried some other scents from Volare. In fact, I did a video about them about 2 weeks ago. They have a line of fragrances that are cloning scents from the Hugo Boss brand, and all of them that I've tried so far seems to have slightly higher quality than the Mesa and Alhambra brand. They have slightly better presentation, they feel of slightly higher quality, the scents themselves and the whole presentation, and I'm not sure if we actually need yet another Lattafa clone sub-brand, but we have it in the face of Volare. The first one that I'm going to talk about will be called Moroccan Dream. This one is supposedly a clone of California Dream from the brand of Louis Vuitton. Now, as you can see, the bottle design is very similar to the original fragrances, although you don't get a magnetic cap. This is more like a simple plastic cap that at least feels somewhat of a snug fit. The bottle has nice heft, and the presentation is quite interesting, especially when it comes to the actual boxes, because both of them look really colorful, and I've been actually quite liking the box design, but that's not so important. Let's talk about the actual scent. Now, when it comes to both fragrances from Volare, the original ones, I don't have much experience with them, so I'm not going to compare them with the original ones. I'm just going to tell you what I pick up out of the 2 fragrances. And this one is sort of an interesting fragrance that opens up fruity, slightly spicy, with a bit of freshness and a bit of musk somewhere in the background. I can't say that I enjoyed the opening that much. To me it smells a little bit on the feminine side, but it's not a bad fragrance, a bad scent. The good thing about both of them is that there's no harshness or anything like that in the opening, and that's why I think that Lattafa have put a little bit more effort into creating the scents themselves, and they feel just of a slightly higher quality than most fragrances from the other sister brand, clone sub-brand of Lattafa, which is Mesa and Alhambra. This is a nice, sweet, slightly spicy, slightly fresh opening that, at least to my nose, has a bit of an sort of an orange note in it, and has quite a strong pear note, which feels quite sweet, with a bit of musk somewhere in the background. Now, what happens on the dry down with this fragrance particularly is that you get rid of that spiciness from the opening, and the dry down becomes very sweet, very fruity. There's that pear note is very dominant throughout the life of this fragrance. Also, it becomes quite a bit more musky compared to the opening, maybe a hint of some ambery sweetness as well, and the dry down feels even more feminine than the opening, at least to my nose. To me, this smells somewhat similar to Herba Pura from Zerjoff. It's like a lighter, less sweet, less fruity, and definitely less musky version of Herba Pura. That's the closest thing to my nose that I've smelled comparing this fragrance from Volare, Moroccan Dream. All around, it's a nice, sweet, fruity, musky fragrance that definitely smells feminine. When it comes to performance, these are initial impressions, but I've been getting, on my first wearing, I got about 6 hours of performance out of it. The next one that I'm going to talk about is called Santorini Beaches, and this is supposedly inspired by Louis Vuitton's On the Beach. Again, I'm not going to compare it to the original fragrance because I don't have much experience with that one, but I can tell you that this one feels a little bit more masculine. You get a very similar bottle design to the first one, very similar to the original fragrances. Again, you get a very plasticky cap that's a snug fit, and again you get a very nice looking colorful box. Let me show you the sprayer in action. I'll tell you what I pick up out of this fragrance. Good sprayer, both of them actually have good sprayers. And the scent itself, this one, as I said, feels more masculine compared to the previous one, although in a way it feels similar as well. You still get a bit of a fruitiness in the opening, a hint of spiciness, you get a hint of freshness as well, but this is slightly darker and has slightly more character compared to the other one, Moroccan Dream. This is less musky as well, and just you know, that spiciness and darkness just makes it a little bit more masculine in my opinion, although this still feels almost perfectly unisex. It's a nicely done fragrance that on the dry down becomes a little bit sweeter, becomes a little bit more woody, slightly more fruity, but still again feels perfectly unisex in my opinion. And to be honest, I've been enjoying Santorini beaches more than Moroccan Dream because I find it to be a little bit darker and a little bit more masculine. But it's nicely done, just like the other one. There's no harshness in this fragrance, not even in the opening, no alcohol blast or anything like that. And I think at least when it comes to the quality of the scent, Lattafa have done a good job, and definitely Volare feels a little bit more upscale compared to Maison Alhambra. Performance wise, I've given it only one wear so far, and it gave me a little bit better performance than Moroccan Dream. Maybe like half an hour more longevity on skin and slightly better projection. Before I move on to the two fragrances from the brand of Paris Corner, I just wanted to touch upon something else. There are a total of 8 fragrances from this Volare line. Now I have all 8 of them, but unfortunately 6 of the other fragrances, the bottles are not with me currently. I gave it to a friend to test them out, so I'll talk about them at a little bit later date. I'll do another video where I'll talk about the rest of them. Moving on to the two fragrances from the brand of Paris Corner. Both of them are from the North Stag Expression line, and I really am a big fan of this line. I already had 2 of them, and now I've added the rest to my collection, and now I have the complete line. I really like the presentation. It's a very interesting and unique presentation. Feels very luxurious, very high quality, and at the same time the boxes themselves doesn't look too bulky, unlike some other fragrances from the Middle East. This feels really upscale, and the same can be said about the bottle design. And in fact, box and bottle design is exactly the same on all 4 fragrances in this line, and they're separated and they're different only because of the color combinations. Bottle has nice heft, metallic cap, really you know, good job from Paris Corner when it comes to the presentation. I'll show you the spray in action. It's a pressurized spray, yet another great thing about this line of fragrances. And this particular one, North Stag Un, is a clone of Bulgari's Tiger, but it's a clone with a twist. This can also serve as an alternative to something like a Vibrato from Suspiro, but again, it's not exactly the same neither to Bulgari Tiger or to Vibrato. The opening here, compared to Bulgari Tiger, at least initially, my initial impressions, feels slightly more spicy, slightly less sweet and juicy compared to the original one. The grapefruit note that Paris Corner have used in this fragrance feels less sweet compared to what I get out of Tiger itself. You also get a bit of some other citruses in the opening. It's a very nice, very pleasant opening. But again, this feels slightly less sweet in the opening, and also feels slightly less sweet on the dry down. On the dry down, you get ambery sweetness just like you get with the original fragrance. You get some ouds just like you get with the original fragrance. Some of the freshness from the opening carries to the dry down, also a bit of the spiciness. But this develops a sort of a soapy vibe on the dry down, something that I don't get out of the original fragrance. And it's yet another way that this is different compared to Tiger. It's not super close to Tiger scent-wise, although if you are familiar with the original, you'll probably end up recognizing what has been the inspiration for North Stag Un. Performance-wise, I've given it only one wear so far, and it was a decent performer. I got about 7 hours of performance out of it. And the other Paris Corner fragrance, of course, is called North Stag Trois. This one is a clone of Louis Vuitton's Imagination. But again, this is more like a clone with a twist, although this one feels closer to the original one compared to the first one that I talked about a minute ago. The opening here is very fresh, very bright. There's a strong sort of a lemony note in the opening of this fragrance. There's some bergamot, maybe a bit of orange. I get a strong neroli note, some ginger in the opening of this one. A slight sort of a green feel somewhere in the background, something like a tea note, which is not very prominent. But this feels very fresh, very zesty in the first few minutes that you spray. spray it on. And this is one way where this is different to the original one. To my nose, this feels a fresher take on the original fragrance, a more citrusy take, a more lemony take. Also has a toned down neroli note compared to the original one. The same can be said for the ginger note as well. So it's an inspiration, feels close, but doesn't feel like a straight up clone. On the dry down, it becomes you know, a little bit darker, it becomes a little bit sweeter. Also there are some oods on the dry down of this one. Also feels maybe kind of balsamic in a way, but on the dry down maybe gets a little bit closer to Imagination, still though doesn't feel like a straight up clone, but it's a nicely done alternative to Imagination, let's put it that way. It's a very fresh, very bright, very zesty fragrance that's super easy to wear and should definitely work great in warm weather. Performance wise, not a huge performer as you would expect with something with such a sort of a fresh scent profile. My first wearing gave me about 6 hours of performance. And in the end, I just wanted to add something else, the price of these fragrances. When it comes to the Volare ones, the whole line, at least where I bought them, costs around about 30 euros. I think slightly less. I think I bought them for 29 euros. And when it comes to the two North Stag fragrances, they definitely feel a lot of having a lot higher quality. The presentation and everything else is a lot more upscale compared to the Volare ones, so they're more expensive. They usually cost around about 40 euros here in Europe, but I think especially in this case it's worth it. And so guys, in today's video I shared with you my initial impressions on 4 new scents for my collection. 2 of them come from a brand new sub-brand of Lattafa, which is yet another clone sub-brand of Lattafa, and the other 2 come from the brand of Paris Corner. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.